States is not that helpless. It could have stopped the bombardment of Lebanon. We have that much control with the Israelis.
I don't think so.
We have gone for collective punishment against all of Lebanon and Palestine.
No, what's interesting, Helen,
and that's the perception of the United States.
Well, thank you for the Hezbollah view, but I would encourage you.
Nobody's accepting your explanation. What is restraint? You call for
I'll tell you what.
Now I'll be glad to answer a few questions, starting with Ms. Thomas.
President, you started this war, the war of your choosing. You can end it alone today. At this point, bring in peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers. 2 million Iraqis have fled their country as refugees. 2 million more are displaced. Thousands and thousands are dead. Don't you understand? We brought the Al-Qaeda into Iraq.
Actually, I was hoping to solve the Iraqi issue diplomatically. That's why I went to the United Nations and worked with the United Nations Security Council, which unanimously passed a resolution that said disclose, disarm, or face serious consequences. That was the message, a clear message to Saddam Hussein. He chose the course. It was his decision.
Right?
Helen Thomas has continued to ask tough, critical questions of the Obama administration as well on issues including Israel-Palestine, the expansion of the war in Afghanistan, nuclear weapons, and torture. Here are some of those highlights.
All right, Helen, this is my inaugural moment here. I'm really excited.
Mr. President, do you think that Pakistan and are maintaining the safe havens in Afghanistan for these so-called terrorists? And also, do you know of any country in the Middle East that has nuclear weapons?
Well, I think that Pakistan, there is no doubt that in the Fatah region of Pakistan, in the mountainous regions along the border of Afghanistan, that there are safe havens where terrorists are operating. And one of the goals of Ambassador Holbrooke, as he is traveling throughout the region, is to deliver a message to Pakistan that they are endangered as much as we are by the continuation of those operations, and that we've got to work in a regional fashion to root out those safe havens. With respect to nuclear weapons, I don't want to speculate. What I know is this, that if we see a nuclear arms race in a region as volatile as the Middle East, everybody will be in danger. And one of my goals is to prevent nuclear proliferation generally. I think that it's important for the United States, in concert with Russia, to lead the way on this.
When are you going to get out of Afghanistan? Why are you continuing to kill and die there? What is the real excuse? And don't give us this Bushism, if we don't go there, they'll all come here.
Well, Helen, the reason we originally went to Afghanistan was because that was the base from which attacks were launched that killed 3,000 people. And I'm going to get to your question, I promise. But I just want to remind people, we went there because the Taliban was harboring al-Qaeda, which had launched an attack that killed 3,000 Americans.
Obviously, as we have said before, we are concerned about the humanitarian situation in Gaza and continue to work with the Israelis and international partners in order to improve those conditions. And as the UN Security Council statement says, obviously it's an untenable situation.
Our initial reaction to this flotilla massacre, deliberate massacre, an international crime, was pitiful. What do you mean you regret when something should be so strongly condemned? And if any other nation in the world had done it, we would have been up in arms. Well, what is this sacrosanct ironclad relationship
we're a country that deliberately kills people and boycotts. And we aid and abet the boycott.
Look, I think the initial reaction regretted the loss of life as we tried and still continue to try to gather the relevant. Nothing can bring them back, Helen. We know that for sure, because I think if you could, that wouldn't be up for debate. We believe that a credible and transparent investigation has to look into the facts, and as I said earlier, we're open to international participation in that investigation.
Why did you think of it so late?
Why did we think of?
Why didn't you initially condemn it?
Again, I think the statements that we released speak directly to that.
That was Helen Thomas questioning Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesperson, before that Presidents Obama and President Bush. Finally, Senator Aberezek, what do you think the White House press room will be like without Helen Thomas right there in the front row?
Well, it'll be an empty suit, simply because she has done what good journalists are supposed to do. And what the White House press corps, the most supine press corps I've seen in years, have refused to challenge any of these presidents the way she does. So eventually they got her, because and she makes people uncomfortable. That's her job, to make people be uncomfortable and to answer truthfully questions that are asked of them. But because the other reporters don't do that, they're afraid to do it or whatever, they finally got her. As did the establishment, the political establishment got her too. They were just waiting, I suppose, for some misstep that they could pounce upon to get rid of her. I might tell you that I was listening to that part about Bush saying they were working diplomatically. Did you know that in 1998 Clinton took the weapons inspectors out of Iraq? So he wanted to bomb Iraq, so he got them out there. Then the press later on, a couple years later, started saying, well, Saddam Hussein kicked the weapons inspectors out. Well, after 9/11, I went over a year later to Iraq, and I met with Tariq Aziz. And I said, look, Bush is going to start a war. And unless you remove his excuse by letting the weapons inspectors back in, you're going to get a war. So do something for yourself and the people of the world by not allowing a war to happen. So he agreed to it. When I was there to ask him that, he agreed to it. They let the weapons inspectors back in, which is one of the demands that Bush was making, and it didn't do any good. And that's what Tariq Aziz said. The words he used were, we're doomed if we do, doomed if we don't. Do you know, Amy, that while I was meeting with him, he said they were making a big stir about getting into the palaces here. So we finally let them into the palaces. What did they do? But they brought their GPS systems in to target these palaces. We knew what they were up to, and that scared us.
Well, Senator Aberezek, I want to thank you very much for being with us. Former Democratic Senator from South Dakota, founder of the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. Again, Helen Thomas will no longer be in the front row of the White House. Her comments posted on her website, I deeply regret my comments I made last week regarding the Israelis and Palestinians. They don't reflect my heartfelt belief that peace will come to the Middle East only when all parties recognize the need for mutual respect and tolerance. May that day come soon, she said. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.